So I'm going to be joined by a number of esteemed colleagues that knows a lot more about the North Africa area than I do. So they're going to be doing all the talking. We are bringing on stage Réda from who's the VP Development, North and Western Africa from AccorHotels. We're bringing on board Christophe, who's the Director of Development Africa for Mövenpick and the resorts. And then also Ramsay, who's the Senior Director Business Development, Middle East and Africa for the Rezidor Group. So while they're being mic'd up, we're going to be talking a little bit in terms of what opportunities are and why. And then we're also going to be taking some questions. It's basically just a little test right at the end to see whether you're still here. So please think about a few questions right at the end. And as soon as everybody's mic'd up, we'll get going. One of the things that I'm sure we'll touch on as well is in terms of when we talk about Africa and we talk about North Africa, there's sometimes that perception in terms of how different it is and what the differences are.
Right.
So, but I think let's maybe start off with that as a discussion for each one of you in terms of where you see the opportunities in terms of North Africa and why. And in those opportunities, are they different than opportunities that has been identified in the rest of Africa? Let's start from immediate left.
North Africa is definitely a great region, and we have to focus on North Africa for many reasons. Mm-hmm. First of all, when you see the fundamentals of North Africa, and I will speak only about Morocco, Algeria and Tunisia, the three airports are the main airports in Africa. They are on the top 10. That's why there is a very high level of traffic of international traveler. If you can see the figures, Morocco represent, for example, more than 10 million of international traveler coming every year. And at the end of this year, they will reach 11 million. Yeah. Just this kind of figure merits to focus on such market. Algeria is less than 2 million and Tunisia less than 6 million. Yeah. This figure shows that there is a great potential. Mm-hmm. In the three countries, Morocco is, I think, the leader in terms of potential because it's the only country in North Africa we can offer opportunity for leisure, but also with business. There are many important cities, Casablanca, Rabat, Tanger for corporate business, and Marrakesh, Agadir, and Tanger also, and all the Mediterranean coast for the leisure business. That's why it's, from my point of view, Morocco offers many opportunities to develop. And that's why we have today in Morocco 30 hotels under operation, from low-cost and budget hotel with IBIS budget to high-end luxury with Fairmont, for example.
And is that where some of the differences lie? Because what I've heard in terms of your answer is looking at access. So in terms of access from key markets, in terms of volumes as well, we're looking at in terms of a different spread. Because in terms of some African countries, you're looking very much as a business market in key locations, not necessarily a leisure market. So there's a spread of potential products that you can invest in, more opportunities in terms of diversification of the product.
Yeah, the air traffic is a key issue. If we take the example for Morocco, the open sky has a great impact on the volume of foreign tourists which are coming to Morocco. And with the open sky, we can also decrease the price of traveling to Morocco. And what we can call it's the smart purchase, because when I see for the Sofitel Marrakesh, we have some clients coming with low-cost hotel, with low-cost plane. And when I discuss with this client, I say, because I don't want to put so much money on the plane, but I prefer to develop more short break. And if we have this kind of open sky in Tunisia, I think it will be a fantastic impact, especially for the leisure part.
All right. Okay. We continue on. Do you concur? Is there other countries that you were looking at?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of Mövenpick and Thornton resorts, we have been historically for a long time on North Africa. If we're looking at our hotels in Africa, out of 22 hotels in Africa, we have only one hotel outside, let's say, the North African region. So it has been for many, many years across, let's say, Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt. And And for the, let's say for the time being and looking at ahead in terms of expansion, for us, when we're looking at Morocco, as Réda mentioned, Morocco stay one of the, let's say, the key country. We have already 3 hotels, one in Marrakesh, one in Casablanca, and one in Tangier. Our aim is to have at least 2 or 3 more hotels, let's say, in the next 2 to 3 years. The debate is between city break hotels. You have more and more like potential, and we would like to have like hotel in Rabat, in Agadir, potentially maybe more on the leisure side, Essaouira, Tamouda Bay. So it's basically for us in terms of North Africa. Strong interest. We're looking at other countries, Algeria, not really to a certain extent, and Tunisia. We already have 2 hotels. We have one coming up next year in Tunis on Berge du Lac. Another addition to the hotel already existing. So we don't really looking at other hotels in Tunisia for the time being because we think that the leisure market, it's a little bit in a difficult zone, let's say, for that specific region. Especially when we're looking at, all-inclusive, 2 operators. So basically, we're paying a little bit more attention in Morocco side and for, let's say, which is not the topic, but more on the Western Africa side. But for us, in terms of expansion, we are pretty confident about Morocco. As you mentioned, we have 11 million visitors. We expect, based on our infrastructure, new thing put in place, initiative to target 20 million visitors. I don't know if it's going to be achievable in the next couple of years, but at least there is initiative. And you have more and more operators coming as well. Luxury product, which is a good sign for the market.
And what I heard there as well is in terms of, in a particular country, you would have geographical spread. So it's not like in some African countries where you do have only basically the capital and you can expand within that. You don't have secondary cities that you're expanding to. And to that's a great advantage for an operator to have numerous hotels in the same country.
I think in Morocco you can. I think you can try to have in secondary cities, which is not much the case for the time being for us when we're looking at the western region or even the eastern region, because it's much more limited in terms of secondary location. So in Morocco you have, as Réda mentioned, you have so many different things. You have corporate business, leisure, people travel, source market, mainly from Europe. What we have seen maybe the last few months, a couple of years, more people coming from China and from Russia. So for us, it makes a lot of sense to keep on trying to expand the brand in Morocco, because, for instance, in Asia, we're facing the largest growth in terms of new hotels in Asia. We have coming up 5 hotels in Vietnam. We opened Philippines, Thailand as well, Indonesia. So for us, it makes a lot of sense because our hotels in Asia count for 40% of Chinese customers. So for us, it makes sense to keep on trying to expand the brand in Morocco because you see more and more Chinese. I think last year was 90 or 90% increase of Chinese visitors. For instance, I was traveling from Dubai to Casablanca last week, and it was 80% of Chinese in the plane. Visitors. So it was incredible to see that.
All right, excellent.
Just to add, the example of the Chinese market is very relevant. The impact of the visa procedure on the volume is direct. For example, Morocco has cancelled the visa application for the Chinese market, and now we have a direct impact on our room nights.
Exactly. Is that what you're finding as well in terms of your...
I think we need also to put back North Africa, and the way we define is having Libya and Egypt versus just the Maghreb countries, is also putting back the context of history. And if you look at it, Arab Spring started out of North Africa and Tunisia, to be precise, with the Tunisian revolution. So those countries have suffered, and so far we're celebrating almost 7 years of the Arab Spring, and you can still clearly see the suffering of those countries, mainly Egypt and Tunisia, on the tourism sector. So when we looked at it, what can we do in terms of expansion plan? Yes, Réda is totally correct. I think Morocco has been the only isolated country that has actually been able to sustain itself economically and still being very mature in its approach. Visa on arrival, exception on visas, which you don't see in the other countries.
Yeah.
But for us, for instance, Egypt was a portfolio which used to be in the past, and I think all of the operators can say the same, used to be the biggest contributor from a leisure perspective for the region. Today is no longer the case, and we have been ourselves washing out our existing pipeline in Egypt because you no longer have the same ability of finding liquidity or quality in Egypt. Tunisia was, I mean, to complement on the offer of what my panelists have said, we are actually the largest operator from a leisure perspective, from Djerba, Hammamet, and now due to open this year in Sousse, but we don't have anything in Tunis. And actually Tunis now for us is the priority moving forward. In Morocco, we just opened only last year one hotel, so we are actually very late in coming into Morocco. So yes, Morocco, from all the factors that I've been saying, I think is the priority for us moving forward. And as I mentioned, rebasculating the portfolio and in terms of what is happening today versus the Arab Spring and the impact we have.
And in terms of the hotels that you recently opened, looking to open, are you also seeing that in terms of a big influx in terms of looking at the Chinese market? Which other markets are they that is potentially growing within the region?
I mean, again, if you take this impact of the Arab Spring, what I think the positive was the substitution of international travelers to domestic demand. And that is something that you didn't see before. For instance, Tunisia, the leisure side, has taken massive wave of domestic demand, not only within from the country, but also, let's say, foreign citizen of Tunisia living abroad, coming actually for summer vacation. Egypt is exactly the same story. Sharm el-Sheikh used to be first destination for European travelers. Today, mostly is domestic demand. So that's why you see somehow there has been resilience of the market by adapting from international to domestic, which has sustained our ability to perform. But then, the question is now, do you want to maintain a property into domestic demand, or you need to have international travelers? And that's where you need to diversify coming back.
Isn't that really one of the challenges? Because one of the differences is obviously that it's about a far more diverse market than, if we can say, sub-Saharan Africa. In terms of you're looking more business as well as leisure, you're looking in terms of different types of markets, you're looking domestic as well as foreign. So in terms of that, then looking at your products, how do you then cater for that? In terms of, can you be everything to everybody, or are you going more specific? Maybe I'll ask all three, and I can start with you.
But the domestic market is a key element in North Africa. If we study the figures from Morocco, it represents nearly 30% of our room nights. It gives you the possibility to extend a network dedicated to the local market. And when we see the experience with the IBIS in Morocco, we have 16 IBIS, and we have adapted the product to the local market. For example, we have a Moroccan living room on the lobby. We have on the menu also, we have adapted to the local market, because the local market is one of our first customers today. And the other point that is also very interesting, the Moroccan living abroad, what we are talking about, represents 51% of the international travelers last year. That's why you have a potential, a secured potential of clients in North Africa. It's not the case, for example, in Sub-Saharan Africa. That's the main difference with Sub-Saharan Africa.
All right, from your perspective?
In terms of Mövenpick Hotel and Resort, we basically is driven by the market in terms of, because for us as a mono brand, we basically across like 4-star to 5-star depending on the market and depending on let's say the source market as well as the target, if it's more leisure or on the corporate side. So for us, when we're looking at, for instance, the offering, facilities, room size, it's basically driven by all those different components. So for us in let's say North Africa, it's mainly, let's say, corporate environment. If we're looking at even in Gamart in Tunis, if it's a hotel on the you have a sea coast or a resort type of, but 80% of the hotel is basically corporate business. So I think, and for the reason it was mentioned earlier in terms of the leisure, it's not really the market we want to try to go into. Let's say in Tunisia, Morocco, for the reason we all mentioned, but for instance, we're looking at Casablanca. There's a big need for corporate hotels. And Marrakesh, it's more like full services, more on a lot of hotels in between. I think Casablanca and Marrakesh was a lot of on the luxury product. So now it's maybe looking more like mid-scale
Yeah.
to upscale, mid-scale product. So for us, we have the capacity basically to, even if we have one brand, to be able to, depending on the budget for the development and so on and so forth. We're really flexible in terms of room size. For instance, if you're looking at properties in Saudi, it's 40 plus square meters, and in Beirut or other places, it's 28.
Yeah.
So basically for us, this is where we're going to be able to meet the requirement from the market.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, look, I think we all have the same ability to adapt, and that's obviously market-driven. I think the only element I will add, which we have seen a trend lately across the region, across Africa, across Middle East, and also in North Africa, is service apartment. And service apartment has been somehow a catalyst of growth even for ourselves. We do not have a specific brand, but we do actually manage service apartment under Radisson Blu or Parking by Radisson on the mid-scale segment. And we see North Africa also picking up on that offering because of the ability of capturing both leisure and corporate demand, and again, short and long term, and the ability of taking, foreign residents that are coming, want to stay for a month with their family because that's the purpose of their visitation in summer, and they have then an apartment with a service ability. And that's why I would say also we have been witnessing this trend moving forward.
In some of the other sessions, a lot have been talked about the mid-market and bringing that more into the African environment, and is Africa and certain countries ready for that type of development. From your perspective in terms of North Africa, you've already developed some of that. In terms of that, is there more opportunities, and in which countries are those opportunities?
I mean, for us, if I look at it, obviously Morocco for us, we have only one property today, which is Radisson Blu. So I think we still need to be recognized, and I think Radisson Blu is being now recognized in the market. So it's too early to introduce parking yet. But I will tell you, in a country like Algeria, we believe the critical mass can actually be sustained with mid-market and then upper upscale. So that would be probably where we would see, mid-market coming forward. Tunis, I will be having the ability, because again, it's a capital city, and mid-market will be justifying this for corporate demand and not versus leisure. So that would be probably where we need, the brand recognition, which is now being established over the continent, but also across the feeder markets.
Right. From your perspective, in terms of mid-scale?
Yes, but the fact we have one brand, so basically we need to...
Exactly, so how do you,
how
do you deal with that, catering to that market?
But I think it's just adapting, because in terms of, like everyone we have like standards, but we a little bit more, flexible in terms of the way we're gonna look at the product. Okay. So basically, want to keep, to the usual things and across all the different operators in terms of services and facilities. Yeah. But it's more looking at basically to develop the product in terms of, for instance, for us, it's like going to be obviously driven by the market, but driven as well by the development, the budget. Yeah. So, for instance, we can adapt the product because we don't have other option at that point in terms of, because there's no. It's not been discussed. We have been raising the points already at the top level in terms of a need for mid-scale products. But the things like as of today, we have 85 hotels worldwide. Yeah. We need to reach a certain critical mass of hotels, which basically we want to try to reach in the next 2 to 3 years to have at least 125 hotels worldwide operating hotels. And maybe at that point we're going to be able to have a proper mid-scale. But for the time being, we adapt the product, and when you're looking at the portfolio we have in North Africa, you can go from a 4-star, for instance, if you're looking at Egypt, completely leisure, all-inclusive, we have 4-star, entry-level 4-star product. But if you're looking at the property we opened a year ago in Marrakesh, it's more the 5-star. So basically we gather to all the different segments with only one brand. So we have to tackle that this way.
Okay. It's an interesting conundrum in terms of one brand. When we look in terms of Accor more multi-brands, easier for you?
Yes, it's easier because we can address the mid-scale segment with many brands like Novotel, Mercure, for example. And when we see the figures of Novotel in Casablanca or in Marrakesh, the Mercure in Algiers, the Novotel in Tunisia, also in Tunis, the figures are very good, and we have a very huge potential for the mid-scale segment, because the mid-scale segment not only address the domestic needs, but also the international travelers who are searching some good value money. Because regarding the worldwide economic situation, there is a lot of pressure on the travel budget. And a brand like Novotel is very well adapted to North Africa, and it's working very well.
And are you finding with construction costs, land costs, are those developments are financially viable?
It's more and more difficult today because the cost of the land is increasing amazingly this year. That's why, for example, to find a land in the city center of Algiers is impossible.
Because those developments need to be well located.
I think the first problem that we are faced in North Africa is the cost of the land. It will be completely different with Sub-Saharan Africa because finance is ready. We can find some sponsors to finance the project, but the first problem that we are faced is definitely the cost of the land. In terms of cost construction, we are very competitive regarding to Sub-Saharan Africa. We are nearly 30% less than Sub-Saharan Africa for many reasons, because we have a lot of local constructors. They are working very well. Also, the cost of shipping is less than Sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is very, very high in terms of construction costs.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you finding the same? And is it the same in terms of land costs? And is it across the board all of the countries, or are there specifics?
For us, one of the major challenges is really to find the right partners. Of course, financing is one of the major, but we try to find people who basically have a proper understanding of on all the the different aspects of building a hotel. It's a marriage for at least 20 to 25 years. So for us, it's one of the key things to be able to put all the different shareholders, or at least the mindset together. To financing is one thing, finding the right partners, location, because it's key to the right location, especially on those different cities. It's.
And in terms of from a Rezidor perspective, is it in, because it's not just the development cost, the land cost, but also in terms of operating, finding the relevant amenities, whatever is required in terms of the operation, is that easier than in terms of from a North African perspective than Sub-Saharan, or not really?
We see that change, and that shift is probably justifying the vision that even, for instance, His Excellency has put forward now Vision 2020 in Morocco in terms of tourism, and that is a catalyst for new private investors. And that you haven't seen before. Algeria is doing the same because they were heavily relying on petrol. Now they have to diversify the economy. So we see the change of ownership, which may give access to land, but again, it will be probably on concession, because then land is too expensive for acquisition itself today.
Okay, then following on from that, and I'm thinking it's the last round of questions that I would have, then we can go to the audience and check if they're still awake. In terms of challenges, and challenges to particular countries, what are the challenges in terms of developing in North Africa? And is it particular to particular countries?
Look, I'll probably list them very quickly. Ease of doing business, number one, Morocco, because they've understood the importance of tourism. Easy access, easy of doing business. They have put forward even offshore. They have the ability to have free zones. So they're really a framework of doing business. Tunisia has been suffering more from a political instability. So it's not a wrong intention, it's more politically driven. Algeria, probably the worst one on the list, and that is because today is extremely bureaucratic. The red tape takes a lot of time, but then again, barrier to entry, if it's extremely difficult, if you're here and you're there, then you will succeed more than anyone, because it's been difficult for you to enter. And that's where the challenges are. And Egypt, if we want to include Egypt, is probably a matter of quality and liquidity today in the market.
Can I ask you the question in terms of security?
Look, security, and again, we spoke about the Arab Spring. I think security is one of the major, and that's where you see still Egypt being suffering tremendously these days, because you still see impact of terrorism. And I think this is something we won't witness any change quickly. Positively, as I think the consumer is forgetting those things very quickly. So we see and we can witness the recovery of a market, but again, that has been the instability of the region so far. I think Tunisia now is recovering because they have just left the airline restriction that they used to have until now. So that has been, again, a catalyst of growth for European market. But probably I will tell you the security reason will be Egypt, number one. Algeria still has, but it's a very domestic-driven market. So that is a different, let's say, ability to cope with security and safety reasons.
And also in terms of just security, it's also put in a different context these days. If you look at what happens in Las Vegas, people now have a different perception in terms of security. Did you find security in terms of impediment, and is there any other challenges to the region?
And the things like in terms of security, I don't really think there's, like in North Africa, it's really based on perception. Because basically when you're looking at everything is happening between, Europe and the US, and it's more the perception that, people coming or doing those, terrible things, they, from North Africa, so people, they're completely confused about it. And because when you see in terms of what's happening in Morocco, the last time in Morocco, in Tunisia was a couple of years back, and basically they're still suffering from something happened 2 or 3 years ago. And when you compare to what happened in Europe and other locations, so I think it's going to be pretty difficult to kind of recover, because people, especially in Europe, based on what happened the last couple of years, they have tried new destination as well. And in the Middle East, so they travel because distance-wise, it's not that far from Europe. So new destination, they came up, and after you don't want to come back to destination that used to be really successful close by, like Morocco, Tunisia. And we see in the Middle East, living in Dubai, you have a lot of people, a lot of destinations like Ras Al Khaimah, people coming from Eastern Europe, coming from Europe, like Western side as well. So in terms of security, is one of the, it's going to be at least for a couple of next year, big challenge. But
other challenges?
Yes, as mentioned, financing, finding the right partners. I think you're going to have more and more hotels, so a shortage of staff as well, because you want as much as possible to promote local talent. So when you have more and more hotels, you're going to be at one point, it's going to be difficult to, let's say, to have all those people. So you're going to have people coming from overseas as well. And after the construction, take times in Africa to between the time you meet the people to discuss the project from a feasibility perspective and when you open the hotels. So for instance, in Africa, especially it takes between 5-7 years to build the hotel. When you're looking at Asia, you divided this by 2. And so it's a major as well concern, because you need basically, especially when you have a management agreement in place, you can't look at other opportunity from that time. So 7 years, it's a long time. So it's one of our big challenge. And it's financing, it's really the major.
You find the same, financing, long lead times?
For Morocco and Algeria, finance is not a key issue for us because we have a specific model of development. In Morocco, we have launched an investment vehicle, which name is RISMA, stock listed. And in Algeria, we have SIAHA. That's why Accor is shareholder in this investment company with some bank and insurance local company. That's why financing our project in North Africa is not an issue. To find some land to develop is our main issue. When you are talking about challenges, Tunisia and Algeria has great potential, but they have faced through also a great challenge. For example, Algeria is a very great country. They have a fantastic Mediterranean coast. There is a lot of competition, not intra-regional, but with Croatia, with Turkey, with Middle East. And now the client is comparing. And it's easy to travel through the website to find a direct flight. And with the bad perception of the security in this country, we need to have some strong differentiation, some strong unique selling point.
When you are in a management contract, you mentioned Tunisia, for example. I'm not sure that they're reinvesting 5% of their turnover each year in their product.
So we decided to stay, and that is because we had a commitment with them that we knew eventually the market would pick up, and then by then, the renovation program will continue. Another example, which is a country that we've decided, is Egypt. Egypt has suffered so tremendously that the quality of the property, and I will give you the example of Sharm el-Sheikh, we have decided this year to pull out of 4 hotels. Why did we do that? Because yes, amicably we realized The owner had no longer any liquidity to be capable to renovate. And the brand standard was so diluted that we could not stay in. So we had to take a decision, look, we have taken the time today now, you have a commitment financially or not. Now you cannot do it, respectfully, but then we need to move forward. So again, it's relationship based, but you need to also look at it in terms of how long can you sustain that relationship without damaging your brand.
Right, another question. Come and have a seat.
Hi there, Nick Carrier from WATG. We do a lot of work
Straight to the front, you need to give it back.
True. We do a lot of work in your region. And in terms of design, what do you look for from your designers? What's the most important aspect when you're recommending a professional to a client?
What is very interesting in terms of design is to have some modern design merged with some local design. Because, for example, in Morocco, we have many leisure activity, and the client needs to find some standards, like the Radisson or a Mövenpick or a Sofitel or Pullman, but you need also to have a special guest experience. And through the design, we can have a fantastic experience, a fantastic immersion on the local arts, the local culture. That's why in every project, we need to have some local components in terms of design.
Right. Any other questions? All right, then I'm going to call it at this stage. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. To the audience, thank you very much for your time. And I think let's go have a drink. Thank you.